Very good afternoon to you. This is the Community Elements Show. My name's Rob Rowe and with me is...
Brian.
Brian indeed. Now today we're actually doing something a wee bit different because instead of having a fresh lot of 4 good news stories, Brian has been very busy over the last weeks should I say, and has cut all his 200 or so stories that he's been presenting over the last year down to 10 through about 25, I believe, was that?
Well, 25 for a start. Then I thought, oh my, I've got to cut it down even further, because there are so many favourite stories. But I enjoy every story that I read out, or I would not be reading them. So cutting it to 25 was a real achievement. Then I thought, how am I going to get down to 10? But, praise the Lord, I've managed.
Good. So we're looking forward to hearing the top 10 in the next couple of weeks. And so we start off with numbers 10 through to 6.
Indeed.
Off you go then, Brian.
A deaf elderly patient was given a special surprise as doctors and nurses learned how to wish her happy birthday in sign language. Margaret McRobbie of Mannifield was faced with the prospect of spending her 88th birthday in Aberdeen Royal Infirmary after being admitted with chest pains. Her son Dennis went to visit with a cake and flowers when the ward staff made the heartwarming gesture of serenading the pensioner with a rendition of Happy Birthday in British Sign Language. Dennis said, "My mum was admitted to hospital after complaining of chest pains and we were awaiting some test results. We had previously thought she would be sent home before her birthday, but the doctor said the results would take that little bit longer than expected. We were disappointed, but planned to come in anyhow to celebrate with her." What the McRobbie family had not anticipated was that doctors and nurses on the ward who had overheard the birthday plans would then spend their breaks learning the signs for the lyrics of Happy Birthday. Margaret, who has worked for most of her life in the laundry department at Wood End Hospital, had been deaf from birth and now lives in sheltered accommodation in Craigielee Gardens. Dennis, who is the only hearing member of his immediate family, spoke of his surprise at the kind act. He said, "My family had gathered in my mum's room when the nurses and doctor came in to sing Happy Birthday. My mum was very surprised and got emotional, as we all did." Dennis from Udney Green has recently started a job at Aberdeen Royal Infirmary as a porter after a career in the oil and gas industry. He said, "So far when working at the hospital, I have been surprised with how many people know basic sign language. I think my mum has got used to people not always being able to communicate, but it's great when people make the effort. This is the first time anything like this has happened." Dennis's partner, Carol Craig, was so touched that she contacted NHS Grampian to thank them for their work. Staff nurse on ward 110, Dawn Kane, said, "We are bowled over by the kind words of the Craig family. It was a pleasure to mark this birthday in such a special way." Pupils from a city school have been praised after they came to the rescue of a pensioner who had fallen in the street. The young heroes from Hazlehead Academy were walking home through the paths around Wood End Hospital when they spotted the older woman lying on the ground. Oscar Klimek, along with Joel Riech and Alex Barber, were first on the scene and went to her aid. As the boys approached, it became clear the elderly woman had slipped and was lying face down on the concrete. Oscar said, "We asked if we could help to lift her up, but she said she preferred to stay lying down." Our friend Joshua Deans was cycling home, and so he decided to cycle to the hospital to get help. I think the most important thing was to keep calm and not panic. That way we will be more likely to know what to do. While the young boys were waiting for help, 4 senior pupils, also from Hazlehead Academy, walked past and offered support. Alexei Admovic, Samantha McGinley, Yasmin Allerton and David King helped their fellow pupils. Alexei said, "We offered our blazers so we could support her head, We don't necessarily have first aid experience. It came naturally to us. We just wanted to help. After a short while, nurses from Wood End Hospital arrived and called an ambulance. The pupils' thinking and compassionate action prompted Wood End Hospital support manager Scott Arnott to contact Hazlehead Academy head teacher Jim Purdy to pass on his thanks. Scott said their quick thinking meant our team were able to speak directly to the paramedics and ensure the patient got the right care. They also provided their blazers to keep the patient warm. I felt it was really important to let the school know how well their pupils had done. The youngsters' head teacher was just as impressed. Mr. Purdy said, "First aid is always a good skill to have, and this is part of our school values, to help others and to get involved and not be a bystander. I am really proud of how they worked together and acted in such an admirable way." A mum of two has been overwhelmed by support from the community as she raised £2,500 in aid of additional support needs at Keith Primary. Sharon Dunbar set herself the challenge of completing the Edinburgh Half Marathon to raise funds for the Beaches, the enhanced provision space in the primary school. The 39-year-old knows firsthand the support of staff provide to her autistic son Ellis, who is 7. He's been using the facility since starting at the school. Sharon completed the 13.1 miles at the end of May and crossed the finish line in just over 2 hours. She said, "It was amazing. I was overwhelmed by everyone's support. I decided to run the half marathon because I've got a big birthday coming up in October and wanted to set myself a personal challenge. I decided to donate the money because my son, who is autistic, uses the Beaches, and I think the staff there are amazing. It is a really good facility. Ellis has been using it since he went into Primary 1, and he has had the same pupil support assistant. She is with him all the time, and they dot in and out of the classroom and the Beaches. But the Beaches is the most comfortable area because it is a lot quieter for him. The facility provides support for children at the school with a range of additional support needs. Sharon asked staff to provide a shopping list of what they wanted to spend the money on. She said, "I've bought iPads and they wanted a sun canopy. I've also bought a TAC Pack, which is a sensory app using music and movement, and a Playmobil. With the change, I'm going to buy Apple vouchers. I'm very proud to have managed to raise this for the charity." Leslie Scott, Principal Teacher of Support for Learning at the school, said children and staff are looking forward to making use of the equipment bought by Sharon. She said staff and pupils were overwhelmed with the generosity shared by Sharon and the people who sponsored her. More than 50 former football players have taken part in a charity match in honour of their ailing friend. Kenny Williams, a stalwart of Sunday and amateur league football in the North East, was diagnosed with motor neuron disease in 2015. The ex-taxi driver was a defender for Moorings, Kemnay Amateursand Stoneywood Amateurs, among others. Friends of the 56-year-old thought a match might be a good chance to raise some much-needed cash for motor neuron disease, as well as allowing Kenny to have a catch-up with friends from his playing days. The ageing group took to the pitch yesterday at Balmoral Stadium, home of Highland League team Cove Rangers, who donated the facility free of charge. After the game, an aching Adrian Bremner, who helped organise the event, said, "It was very good. It really was. We've raised a lot of money for motor neuron disease. It's been a few years since I last played, so I'm struggling to walk." My team managed to win in the end 7-4. It was end-to-end stuff, but was all played in good spirits. To Adrian, the turnout was testament to the popularity of Kenny. He said, "It's all Kenny. It really speaks volumes to the type of person he is." Part of it was so that we could all see people from the old days, but it was mostly for Kenny. Everyone appreciated him as a player and as a person, and it's an absolutely horrible thing that's happened to him. According to Adrian, Kenny was emotional before the match. As friends and former Evening Express sports editor Charlie Allen read out a speech on his behalf. Through Charlie, Kenny said, "I really appreciate the fact that everyone is here. I'll live for the day now, and I'm sure I'll enjoy this day more than most. I had the honour of playing with and against most of you, and it means a lot to me that you're here." Adrian was keen to thank Cove Rangers for their part in the game. He said, "It was really good of them to let us use this pitch. It was a nice thing that they did." When Suzanne Davies received the earth-shattering news she had a brain tumour, people around her asked, "Why you?" Suzanne's response was, "Why not me?" And therein lies the key to this remarkable and inspirational lady's positive outlook, for it has seen Suzanne through some of the darkest days. Ever since doctors told her in 2014 she had little more than a year to live. Suzanne, who celebrated her 40th birthday earlier this year, said, "I really wish I never had it, but it is very common." After struggling with blinding headaches and what Suzanne believed to be eye strain, she went to see her doctor. She said, "I had symptoms for around 6 months and had 2 experiences of being awakened through the night, unable to breathe." Suzanne, who was at work when the tumour's effect was witnessed by colleagues, she says, "I would be in mid-conversation and would just stop talking. Words failed me, or they came out nonsensical." She recalled, "It might seem like a nightmare. In fact, it did feel like a nightmare. One where you are trying to speak but no one understands you." Working 2 jobs, as well as taking care of her family, Suzanne believed she was overtired. On the day she visited the doctor, Suzanne showed the doctor a list of problems she had noted on her phone, in case words had failed her again. She was immediately sent to Aberdeen Royal Infirmary for a CT scan. She said, "Within 2 hours I was told I had a mass on my brain the size of a golf ball." Reeling from the blow, Suzanne was admitted to the neuro ward for tests. With the loving support of her family, Suzanne was told she had glioblastoma, a grade 4 astrocytoma. All around, as Suzanne's loving ones broke down, Suzanne could only think of those she loved the most. She said, "The only thing I could think about was my kids and the urge I had to fight it. I remain as determined today as I was then." Suzanne believes having a positive outlook has made a big difference in her life. When she had the operation to remove the tumour, Suzanne chose to remain awake during the 6-hour operation. "The way I saw it," she said, "is if I remained awake during it, I would be after it." Suzanne hopes by sharing her story, it will offer a message of hope to others. "I take nothing for granted and try to live my life as fully as I can," she said. "Since my diagnosis, I have become an aunt twice over, so I'm blessed to have 2 gorgeous nieces, Megan and Jessica. Appreciate what you have and tell yourself you are going to beat it for as long as you can." We have an appropriate scripture text today taken from Psalm 23 and verse 4, which says, "Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me." Amen.
Excellent, Brian. Thank you very much for your choice of good news stories from over the last year.
I look for something that's uplifting. I mean, good news should be uplifting. And I've looked for ones that are sort of even more uplifting than normal. These 5 that I've read today and the 5 for next week are all ones which make me feel good about people. I look mostly for people that are helping others, and we've had examples today of this. Because, you know, when you help other people, well, you'll know if you've done any helping of other people, you'll know that you're also helping yourself. Because you build yourself up. You feel much better after having help. Mm-hmm. But I don't believe people were doing it for a selfish reason, but nevertheless they are rewarded with this uplifting experience themselves.
And then having, for example, a tumour the size of a golf ball on the brain, but then having a positive attitude and even choosing to stay awake during the operation. Yeah, I mean, there was an opportunity. I'd rather be awake if I could.
Mm-hmm. I know that took courage, a great deal of
We're
courage.
taking courage.
Ah.
Sometimes it takes courage just going along to the dentist.
But she went through that, that operation because she had a positive attitude.
Yes, and she'd been given that part way through the way that others were towards
Supporting her.
Yes, supporting her.
Yes, indeed they were. And I'm quite sure they're still supporting her. And in a way, she is supporting them by the encouragement that she gives to everyone.
Because she was thinking, all the people that she loves the most.
Yes.
And that she must fight it really for them.
Indeed, indeed. I think that's one of the most uplifting stories that
and that's why it's number
we've had.
6. I think, was it number 6?
I
thought
don't.
It was number 6.
Yes, number 6.
There you go. So anyway, we've got 5 through to 1 next week.
Yes.
And we'll look forward to your choices then.
Every one of them is good, I can guarantee that even now.
I know you've already prepared those already.
Well, I haven't written them up, but I've got them all in my mind.
Good. Well, we look forward to that one for next week.
Very good.
Another round of Brian's good news. And one of the things that you will notice, listeners, if you go to our website, where possible, we're trying to write up some of the good news stories that Brian covers already a little bit before with links, so that you can already go to those links, and then we add the podcast a little bit later when that comes along. So there are already on our podcast site quite a few different podcasts, and there will be some more by the end of this week ready for you to listen to. There's several of the Word for Today as presented by Rachel Summers. There's also other particular ones coming up as well. So do look out at our podcast site, podcast.g4g.org.uk. Now, Brian, we've actually had a bit of good news ourselves. Well, ourselves. I work for Aberdeen City Council Ranger Service 3 days a week. And the Ranger Service was presented by AVCO, which is the volunteer centre here in Aberdeen, AVCO, and they have a volunteer friendly award which takes into account about 25 different criteria, and one of our colleagues, Jen, put together an application for this award, and when it was put in, thanks to Jen, they considered it to be of the highest standard. So they had no hesitation in giving the award. And in fact, the Ranger Service is I think, the only Ranger Service in Scotland that has actually been presented with such an award.
Congratulations, Rob.
Yeah, well, it's not just for me, but this is for the whole team. And to be able to actually, I'm there 3 days a week, and to be able to actually let people know that there are teams out there. And when we first started off, I felt very far away from being anything of that. But it's taken a good time to get there. But we now have 5 Rangers who work closely together along with Countryside Officer Ian Tallboys, and they do a great job. So that is a good news story in itself.
Indeed it is. So I hope you will pass on to each of and every one of the 5 that the radio station is appreciative of what they have done.
I will certainly do so, yes.
Very good, Rob.
Anyway, Brian, we're going to be passing on to another of our community elements right now. Could you finish off by reading the scripture, please?
From Psalm 23, verse 4, which states, "Yea, though I look through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me."
Once again, Brian, thank you very much, and we'll see you next
pleasure.
week. See you next week for the same, or rather, should I say, for the top 5.